Arts and Culture Minister Nathi Mthethwa will lead a panel discussion on gender at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Bellville. The dialogue will center around the life story of anti-apartheid activist Mama Albertina Sisulu. Mama Sisulu's centenary is being commemorated this year.
Minister Mthethwa will be joined by the Minister of Women, Bathabile Dlamini. The panel will discuss South Africa's liberation struggle and gender equality. The debate is part of government's Women's Month celebrations held under the theme 100 Years of Albertina Sisulu. Women united in moving South Africa forward. Now, joining us in studio to reflect on the resilient spirit of the women of 1956 is former Higher Education Minister and ANC-NEC member, Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here at Afro Worldview. We really appreciate it. We're going to dig straight into the topic. I would like you to talk about the voice of women. Back in 1956, they had struggle and challenges. They overcame and they were successful. Today, 2018, women still have challenges. How do you compare the voice of women back then in that era to the voice and power of women today?
Thank you very much for having me. I think it's a very difficult time to reflect on the successes of women of 1956 in the context of real serious life challenges that women face today. But I still think we have to continue honoring people like Mama Albertina Sisulu, and many other women who struggled before, a decade before, like Charlotte Maxeke, in terms of the spirit of resilience. Remember that time, you know, the colonial powers, later the apartheid regime, they were brutal and really merciless. But these women united, were organized, united, and very strategic in choosing critical issues that affected the black life, woman's life, black family, a black community. Like the question of land in the early 1900s. Charlotte Maxeke was the first to mobilize women in terms of saying, let's revolt against the Natives Land Act because it's going to commit people to poverty for the rest of their lives. If you look at Mama Albertina Sisulu, humble beginnings from deep rural areas, but deeply committed on issues of social justice. And of course, consistent, persistent, and decisive throughout all her life, and uniting women all the way. Okay,
well, apart from Flo Letwaba, would you say our generation is producing powerful, strong women speaking out?
You know, each generation has got to be very careful about its challenges. For instance, now we are women in positions of power and playing a leadership role within our political parties. And those are contradictions that we have to confront on a daily basis as to whether they make us compromise the struggle for women, for convenience or for survival. Because sometimes if you look at some of the challenges we have, they emanate from dynamics within political parties, in society, within the family. So we have to be much more vigilant and confront this social ill of inequality, irrespective of the source.
All right. Professor, you are a powerful, distinguished woman in your own right, former Minister of Higher Education and Training, former Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, and now a member of the ANC and NEC. In the aftermath of Khinsani Maseko's suicide, and would you say your committee has prioritized femicide, rape, and child abuse?
You know, if you look at the context of the achievements of women like Mayor Albertina Sisulu, I was in the Eastern Cape when I heard that at Makhando, Rhodes University, they'll be having a memorial service. I debated and I couldn't see myself going there because there has been an issue of the rape culture. I shared a platform with the Vice Chancellor there, briefly, Mabizela, while I was a Minister of Higher Education, because students were strongly raising the issue of a rape culture. So, you see, there's something which is puzzling, because we become aware, and sometimes our interventions are lukewarm and undecisive, and then there'll be an episode, then we all react and we all come up, you know, in shock. And remember, this is following the incidents at the Durban University of Technology, where a young woman from the rural areas of Ishowe was shot dead by a boyfriend. The roads issue, I don't think it has been addressed. Okay. Students have been constantly raising it, saying there's a culture that is not being dealt with here. And of course, you know, I looked at this Kenzani story. I said, number one, she was emotionally not coping. She went home a bit. The anger, the agitation, and that feeling of being dirty. And then at the time when she was supposed to go back to this context, that's where she felt, I don't think I want to go back there. You see, that's a real challenge in her mind. That's how bad the experience of that context has been.
So what actions do you think should be taken to safeguard our women on campuses?
I think, you know, the policies have to be much clearer in terms of how to prevent sexual assaults from happening. The reporting measures, the reporting hot points. You know, then, of course, the committees that are able to deal with these issues timelessly. You don't expect to hear after 3 months a voice that will say, but she didn't report. Everybody knew that she had been raped. Then if we take a legalistic route and not intervene decisively, that's where you find that on campus in particular, it just becomes, you know, there are no consequences. People continue, it's business as usual. For instance, she lost her life not knowing that the university was gonna suspend the culprit.
Professor, in your opinion, what do you think we should be teaching our boy children at home and at school about how to treat women?
You see, gender equality is not really an academic exercise. We should look very carefully, we know, developmental stages. What do you become aware of at what stage? If at the age of 2 you become aware of race differences, and you are made to be aware of gender differences in terms of power, relations, because a little girl will be taught to begin to take a cup, put it there, make it sure it's clean, do this, and the boy is playing out there. And, you know, you can look developmentally all the way through. And unfortunately, our curriculum has not been helpful in terms of really confronting this issue by making sure that, you know, our education system quite early, it just demystify all the myths around the male power. And it confronts this male hegemony of domination and power. And it's not something which has to be, you know, it's something which should permeate society, like a network society. You know, in the telecoms, when they say we are a networked society. Patriarchal societies are like that. It's at home, at school, in the church, everywhere in society. How you play, how you do this, the games you play, you are allowed to play, and so on. So we have to transform our society. And we have to be decisive in terms of doing that. And when it comes to us as women, sometimes I always say we must do what women in other parts of the world would do. Whenever there's a setting where they feel there's gender inequality, they walk away. Okay. They don't sit in.
I had 2 bikers on set yesterday, the founders of the Sopranos Bikers Union, and I asked them point blank, how do you treat women? And the 2 men started to blush. So I'm going to ask you on national television, how should women be treated in one sentence or one word?
I think, you know, the first thing, each and every man should realize that women have equal rights like them, and then engage them from that point of view, because also you don't want women to be patronized. And so if your starting point is to, if I affirm you and I recognize your right to dignity and, you know, then immediately we're on an equal setting. There's no way in which I can use my energy, my power, in terms of saying I will dominate or I will undermine you or I will discriminate against you. It's really realizing that women have human rights as any other citizens have, and they should enjoy them. You know, because there's a new thing in a modern society where really even the worst abuser can come up here and compete with me in terms of what I'm saying from an articulation point of view. So there's no contradiction. People do not deny that women has equal rights. But the question is, who really believe deeply that and have internalized the notion of women's rights as human rights?
All right. Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize, we thank you for your time, and we hope to speak to you again soon on this subject. Thank you again, once again, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here at Afro Worldview.